Okay, hope you're doing well today. Been a lot of press in the past 3 weeks over this Meltdown and Spectre issue with these processor vulnerabilities and the sky is falling and everything else. Um, my view on it is I'm not seeing anything new here. Um, for one thing, we're breaking a lot of basic rules, which is never install patches on the 0 day because, well, things don't always go well, especially when it comes from Microsoft. Well, apparently that applies to Intel as well, as the latest news in the past few days is faulty Meltdown and Spectre patches causing random system reboots and other strange behavior from even newer Intel CPUs. Um, and I first found out about that in the Hacker News. So I've been doing a little research. And I've been going back all the way to the initial announcement, which actually we first heard this around Christmas. So one of the things they say to do is you go to GRC, you go to grc.com, and you could download this little app that Steve Gibbs wrote called Inspector. And I've actually run it, and on mine, I haven't done any BIOS updates, but this is Windows 7, and we got some updates. So apparently, I am not vulnerable to Meltdown, but I am vulnerable to Spectre, and that's because Meltdown is basically the software patch, and Spectre is the BIOS patch. Well, the BIOS patch, as in this stuff. Now, if you really do a little bit of a deep dive here, you can actually go right to meltdownattack.com and they have all the information about Meltdown and Spectre. What they don't have is anything specific about who or what or how this is going to be attacked, other than Meltdown can effectively be launched through a JavaScript app, which is interesting. But then again, JavaScript is forever doing security updates, and they tell you flight off the bat if you don't have your security updates enabled. So there should be a way around it. But here's the bottom line here, folks. Okay, this is a flaw. This is something bad that could happen. Okay, but the sky is not falling. Your hair is not on fire. Chill out and don't sit there and lose sleep over this because A, there's nothing you could really do about it. And here's why you can't really do anything about it, even with these patches and that. I've been reading over these papers about Meltdown and Spectre, and let me tell you what I'm seeing here. I am seeing nothing out of the ordinary. These papers, these descriptions of these attacks, equate to what looks like a kernel programmer's Bible. There's nothing out of the ordinary here. It's just taking advantage of functionality that was already there. Now, I equate this to driving down the road, and you have a choice when you drive down the road. You can drive safely, and everybody lives and gets home safely, or you could go nuts and drive the car up on the sidewalk, mow a bunch of people down, people die, families broken up, horrible things happen. If that sounds oversimplified, it's not. Because the bottom line here is these vulnerabilities, while they are very real, there's a reason nobody has bothered with them since 1995 when the first processors came along that actually started having virtual addressing and multiple cores and speculative execution to improve processor performance. This is nothing new. In fact, it reminds me a lot of some Linux kernel hacks, like there was a hack a couple of years ago against Linux involving OpenSSL. That it basically existed for over 20 years. I think it was Heartbleed. Yeah, it was Heartbleed. Just because someone basically got lazy maintaining the code and left it open. And it didn't really become a problem until people started running around with their hair on fire. I submit to you that Intel and this rush is very good corporate responsibility. Yes. However, their initial patch was suspect. That they are now telling people to effectively not install the patch. And the line you've upset Linus Torvalds, by the way, too, in the process. You don't want to upset Linus. You know, Colonel Panic, call Linus. Anyway, they are literally saying, and to verbatim here, they are recommending OEMs, cloud service providers, manufacturers, software vendors, end users stop deployment of current versions on the below platforms, which is everything. And you see it, all the Intel, the Xeons, all 8 generations of the core processors. I mean, we're going back. Celeron, Pentiums, probably the Core 2 as well. I don't see it in here. Core X, yeah, well, that's X99, but they're actually telling people don't install this BIOS patch. It's screwed up. Yes, it's screwed up. And I am suspicious of it. I'm suspicious of Intel and I'm suspicious of Microsoft. And I'm not trying to get any conspiracy theory here. I'm not somebody to fall for that stuff. It just, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's real interesting that initially Intel said, well, this will affect our older processors, but now the newer processors, the 8th gen, the Coffee Lakes and that, are being similarly afflicted from their so-called patch, where before it was only the older processors that were really concerned about having extended and extensive problems. And when they discovered that they basically made something that a quote unquote patch that screwed up their new product line, oh, well, now we've got to do something. I find this to be a convenient engineering exercise. Same goes with Windows. Microsoft has done very little as far as addressing Windows 7, Windows 8, because they are in a marketing push. They want to get to that 1 billion deployed Windows 10 for their own means. And I've already said about my feelings on Windows 10 here, on forums and other places. It's a good operating system that's hobbled by a bad marketing plan. And that's the problem with it. There's too much marketing involved in Windows 10 and too much that you give up to run it, like control over updates, things like that. We all know, if we've been in IT for a while, how unwise it is to install Windows patches on the first day, or Office patches, or anything that comes from Microsoft, because they use their user base, their customers, as guinea pigs, betas. And that, personally, my business and my customers deserve better treatment. And I think now the same goes for Intel. I think that I really don't think there's a lot of there. As I said, I've been reading the information here on Meltdown and Spectre. I'm not seeing anything that's that out of the ordinary. I'm not seeing anything that's outside of the realm of how people have been coding for the x86 platform for the past 25 years. I'm not seeing it. The only reason stuff that's railed isn't affected by it is because the railed stuff didn't have the hardware capability. That's all. So I'm just not buying it. And I would say hold off. I would say keep your Java, make sure your Java security prompts are re-enabled and the Java is updated, because the really Meltdown is the only one that's really going to be able to get to you easily because of Java. The rest of it, they're not demonstrating. They're not even demonstrating how the software is getting on the machine. There are still no verifiable. Let me show you something here that's very telling, even after all this time. They have a little Q&A on this page. Okay? Now, of course, it's, oh, those are passwords and sensitive data, blah, blah, blah. Uh-huh, okay. Has it been used in the wild? We don't know. We don't know. Well, I can bet you that somebody is going to eventually come up with it. But they're already hard hacks to initialize, other than the JavaScript thing. I mean, look, standard internet PC hygiene should always apply. The thing is that they virtually left, there's not enough information here, and we've had 3 weeks, almost a month to deal with this. And all we get is bad patches, and we can't even tell our system administrators and our network administrators, oh, okay, well, we need to watch for this kind of activity, or things coming from this side, or these kind of ports being used by this kind of malware. We don't know. That's what we get. Well, if we don't know, then we can't possibly be expected to listen to your cry of wolf. I don't believe this is as big and as extensive a problem as they're making it out to be. I think it's going to become one, but I think it's because of a failed marketing exercise. This stinks of marketing gone wrong. Because I'm not seeing anything, I'm looking at this, I'm not seeing a quote unquote vulnerability. I'm seeing business as usual for the way that you code when you're dealing with the kernel. I'm seeing business as usual with the way Intel hardware runs. And if this was a problem, you can bet it would have showed up before now. We're talking about a proof of concept which is being run locally. They're not even mentioning, if anything, if JavaScript, if you updated security, you had security prompts, or if you didn't allow remote execution or something like that, or unsigned code. They're not even mentioning that. There's nothing in this, these so-called white papers. So what I'm saying is, be vigilant as always, but don't believe everything you hear, because it's already having negative effects. In fact, it's already backfired for Intel. I honestly think this was used as an excuse to push new Intel processors. I honestly believe that. Because Intel wants you to upgrade every 2 to 3 years. That's what they want. And people are holding on to their systems too long. Let's face it. Back in 2007, 2008, when the original Core series, first gen Core processors came out, they were so damn good that people are still using them now, and that cuts into their bottom line. Well, folks, I'm telling you, not many people are going to be doing a lot of system upgrades with the prices of memory and GPUs being out of this world. And the last thing Intel wants, which is why they've said don't apply the screw security. If this was such a serious security risk, Intel wouldn't be flat out saying don't do the patch. They would have said, oh, here's the new patch right now. No. Intel is in effect suffering from shooting themselves in the foot by essentially having what looks like a misdirected marketing effort gone awry. Because they didn't want their newer processors to be affected by this and didn't think they would be, but they found out they are. And I know this came from Google and some researchers and all that good kind of stuff. And I'm sure that every month Intel and AMD, and just about every other, chip maker out there who get the same reports with the same kind of vulnerabilities. I just think that Intel tried to take advantage of this one, and so did Microsoft. And I think it kind of went wrong for Intel. They shot themselves in the foot. Um, so yeah. So bottom line is, just hang in there, guys. Be smart. Because let me put it to you this way: this vulnerability has been around so long that if you are going to be affected by it, if it was viable to spread this on a massive scale, it would have been done by now. We wouldn't be first hearing about this in 2018. Just use some common sense and don't freak out over this stuff. Let it die down, let it settle down. Let's see what the real vulnerability is. Because right now, I'm seeing a lot of hype. And the only people it's benefiting are people who have something to gain from the hype. Again, I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist. I'm just putting the numbers together. I'm looking at the information. And what I'm seeing is not convincing me because I'm seeing a lot of could be, would be, we don't know, we're not sure. For something that's been around for over 20 years, really? That's all I got to say about it, folks. I'll tell you, I would not be overly concerned with this. And the performance impacts alone on server farms, on large deployments and enterprises have already mitigated this so-called security remediation simply because the pros know better. So be safe, be vigilant, be secure, but don't be fooled. That's all I got to say about this. I'm out. Thanks for watching. You have a great day and relax.